Gradient. What is a gradient? Gradient itself is a del operator, which we usually call del or nabla. So this is del, or we call it nabla. It is a vector quantity which is defined as so this is del operator, which is the gradient. So this is the gradient, which we call del. So what if I'm asked to find del psi? What is del psi? So you have to notice that suppose let's say psi, we have point x, y, and what, and z. So you have to notice that del of what, del psi and grad psi, it is what, it is all the same. I can give you a question and says find del psi and find grad psi. So it is all the same thing. You don't have to be confused. But you have to take note that what is del psi? Suppose if I am given psi at point x, y, and what, and z. So if I am given psi as the point x, y, and what, and z, so what will be my del psi? So the new del psi here should now be, I'll first put the value of what, the delta, which is the gradient, plus I'll have 4j by partial of y, partial of what, of z. And for psi, it is the same thing as I, which is what, psi by dx, plus 4j, which is the psi by what, the partial of y, plus k partial of what, psi by partial of what, partial of z. So you have to notice that the del psi, it is what, it is a vector field, as I explained before. So you have to notice that the component of what, the component of this del psi in the direction of a unit vector, direction of a unit vector, let's say this is a unit vector, is given by what? Let me have some space. As I was saying, the direction of what? The direction of del psi in the direction of a unit vector, let's say this is given by what? Is given by d psi by what? By ds. The direction of the unit vector that is given by d what? D psi by ds is the same thing as what? As the unit vector dot what? Dot del of what? Of psi. So you have to take note of that. The question says let psi of x, y, z, it is equals to 3x squared y minus y cubed z square. We are to find what? Del psi or grade psi at the point 1, -2, and -1, and hence find the directional derivative of the function psi at what? At the given point in the direction of the vector. So this is the direction of the vector. So the first thing that I'm going to do, solution, I have to first identify what? There's del psi. So I have to say del psi is the same thing as I will have I'll first put what? My grade, which is the gradient, which is j partial derivative of what? Of y plus k, which is partial derivative of what? Of z, and multiplied by the value of what? Value of the psi, which is what? Which is these values. In bracket, which is 3x squared y minus y cube z squared. So the next thing that I'm going to do is that I have to say the del psi is the same thing as I'll first pick out for the value of what? I, then I'll fold the bracket, I will insert my 3x squared y minus y cube z squared, and then I have to say plus for the j also d by dy. Also I have to fold the same thing, which is 3x squared y minus I have y cube and what? And z squared, closed bracket, and then I have to say plus for the value of what? Of k, which is d by dz, which is the partial derivative, not d. And then again I have to fold 3x squared y minus y cube z squared. So as you can see, what I did is that because I have I, j, k, gradient is a vector quantity, so I have to pick the whole value of what? Of the psi and insert it in each and every what? In each and every part inside this gradient. I have it. So I have to keep for I, for j, and what? And k. So the next thing that I'm going to do here is that I have to differentiate the first part for I, also differentiate the second part for j, also differentiate the third part for what? For k. So make sure you write this. I need some space. So as you can see, I have to differentiate it from the first part. If I differentiate this with respect to x, at the end I will get 6xy, and this is constant, it will now become 0. So therefore the del psi, it is the same thing as I have to say 6xy I. This is for I. The next thing is that, don't forget, here is squared and this is y. So I have x here, I have y, but I'm going to differentiate with respect to y because it is dy. So I have to say, if I am to differentiate with respect to y here, at the end I will end with only 3x squared, because this y should now become what? Should now become only 1. So I have to say plus, open bracket, write down only 3x squared, which is this, and let's comes to here. Here we have only y cube. We can differentiate this because we have y. So differentiate this y cube is the same thing as what? It is the same thing as 3y square. Then I will add the z. So then I have to say minus 3y squared, also z squared, which is what? 4j. The next thing is that I have to take a look for the value of z. I didn't have z here, so this should not become 0, but I have z here, so I have to differentiate with respect to z. Differentiate z square is the same thing as what? It's the same thing as 2z. So I have to say for the value of what? Of z, which is for k, it will now be 2y cube z. Yes, so we already differentiated, so let's clean this. So as you can see, the next thing that I'm going to do, I have the point. I already have my point, which is 1, -2, and also -1. So I have to insert it. So you have to take note that this one, we have 1, we have -2, and we have -1. So this one is the same thing as x, and this -2 is the same thing as y, and this -1 is the same thing as what? Is the same thing as z. So the next thing to do is that I have to say the del psi at what? At x, y, z, which is equals to 1, -2, and -1, it is equals to what? So don't forget I have 6. So 6x is the same thing as what? 1, and also y is the same thing as -2. I'll put my what? My I, and then I have to say plus what? Open bracket, I have 3x, which is 1, and it has squared, and I have to say minus 3, y it is -2, and also it has squared, and also multiply by z, which is -1, and it has what? Square. So I am done with G. Moving to K, I have 2. There is one thing that I need you to know. From this, 3x squared y minus y cubed z squared. By the time that we are differentiating with respect to z, this should now become 0, and at the end we are left with only this. But we forget to put the negative what? Negative sign. So I have to put negative here. And also I will continue. I have the value of this y, so I'll put the value of what? Y, which is -2, but I have 3. And then I have z, which is -1. So I have what? I have k. So the next thing that I'm going to do here is that I'll have -12i minus 9j minus 16k. So this is what? This is my final solution. Because if I say 6 multiplied by 1 is the same thing as 6 multiplied by -2, it will become -12i. So if you calculate it at the end, you'll get this answer. So the next thing that I'm going to do is that, but let me have some space. The final solution for the del psi, it is what? -12i minus 9j minus 16k at what? At the point x, y, z, which is the same thing as 1, -2, and what? And -1. So the next, we have to find the unit vector where a is the same thing as 2i plus 3j minus 4k. So the unit vector is the same thing as a divided by what? Magnitude of a, which is vector a. So vector a is the same thing as 2i plus 3j minus 4k, all divided by what? Divided by 2 squared plus 3 squared plus -4 squared. And this is the same thing as saying 2i plus 3j minus 4k divided by sum of these numbers inside what? Inside the square root, which is root of what? Of 29. So the next thing that I'm going to do, if you could recall, this psi by what? By ds is the same thing as unit vector dot what? Dot del psi. So this is the same thing as saying 1 over root of 29, and we have 2i plus 3j minus 4k, and we have to dot it with what? With this value, the value of this del psi. So we have to dot it with this value, but we need to have space. So as I was saying, I have to dot them 1 by what? By root of 29, we have 2i plus 3j minus 4k dot the value of what? The final answer that we get for del psi, which is negative 12i minus 9j minus 16k. So if we are going to use the dot product, so we are going to multiply the what? We are going to multiply 2 by 12, and also we are going to multiply 3 by 9. Also we are going to multiply 4 by negative what? Negative 16. And don't forget that root of 29 is the same thing as 5.385. So this should now be equals to 1 divided by 5.385 multiplied by this dot after dotting them. So this is the same thing as saying I'll have negative 24. If I say 12 multiplied by negative 12 multiplied by 2, I'll get negative 24 minus what? Minus 27 plus 64. So you have to take note of that. So at the end, after saying minus 24 minus 27 plus 64, at the end I'll get 13. So this should now be 13 divided by 5.385. So therefore d psi by ds, it is the same thing. 13 divided by 5.385 is the same thing as 2.414. So this is the end of what? Of this question. So the next question says find the directional derivative of the psi. We are given this, and also we are given the point in the direction of what? Of the vector. So the next thing that we are going to do, as we all know, we have del psi, which is the same thing as what? I. This is for I. For j, which is the partial derivative of y, plus 4k partial derivative of what? Of z, and we are given this as what? As this, as the value of psi. So x squared y plus y squared z plus z squared x. So this should now be equals to For I, we have x square y plus y square z plus z square x. And for j, we have x square y plus y square z plus z square x. For k, we have also x square y plus y square z plus z square x. So we have to differentiate. So for I, if I differentiate each and every part 2 and what and part 3, each and every part with respect to x, automatically this should now become 0. I'll get what 2xy here, and also I'll get what z square here. So therefore I'll have 2xy plus z square, and also the same thing as for j. I will have x square plus 2y z j. Also for z, I will have y squared plus 2z x, which is for k. So therefore, if I put the point 1 and -1 and 2, so don't forget this is x, this is y, and this is what? This is z. So this should now be equals to 2. I'll put 1, I have -1, and I have plus 2 square for I, and for j, I'll have 1 square plus 2, -1, 2, which is for what? For j, plus for k, which is -1 squared plus 2, open bracket, which is the value of z, which is 2, also multiply by x, which is what? Which is 1. So at the end, this should now be 2i minus 3j plus 5k. 2 times 1, which is 2, multiplied by what? Multiplied by 1, it will give you -2, and therefore plus 4, and this at the end it will now become 2. So you have also 1 square plus 2 multiplied by this, it will end with -2. -2 multiplied by this will become -4. So you have to say 1 plus -4, it will now give you what? -3. And also I have -1 squared, which is 1, plus 2 multiplied by 1, which is what? 1, and therefore 2 multiplied by 1, which is 2, and 2 multiplied by 2, which is what? 4. At the end, 1 plus what? 4, it will become 5. So therefore the del psi is the same thing as what? 2i minus 3j plus 5k at this point. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I have to find the unit vector. So this unit vector is the same thing as a vector a divided by the magnitude of what this. So don't forget, this is what? This is the vector. We have 4i plus what? Plus 2j minus what? Minus 5k as usual. So divided by its magnitude. So I have to say 4i plus 2j minus 5k all divided by magnitude of this, which is adding and what? And squared it all. So I have to say 4 squared plus 2 squared plus 5 squared, 4i plus 2j plus 5k divided by root of 45. So you have to take note that this psi by ds is the same thing as the unit vector dot what, dot this value that we find, which is the del psi. So at the end I have to say this dot this, and don't forget it can be written as 1 over root of 45 multiplied by 4i plus 2j plus 5k dot this, which is 2i minus 3j plus 5k. So as I said, with this dot product, it is same thing as this multiplied by this, and 5 also multiplied by what? Multiplied by this. So after then, at the end, you will get 1 divided by the root of 45 is the same thing as 6.708. So after dotting this, you will get negative what? Negative 23. So this is the same thing as saying negative 23 by 6.708. At the end, negative 3.43 as what? As your final solution. So therefore the final solution in this, which is this and what, and also this, we show that del fg is the same thing as f del g plus what, plus g del f, where f and g are differentiable scalar function of x, y, and what, and z. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I have to say solution del fg, which is what, which is this, I have to say is the same thing as what, as we all know the gradient. This is for what? This is for I plus j, which is y, plus 4k, which is z. Then I have to say multiplied by fg. So this should now be equals to 4i by what? By x. I have to multiply each f what? G plus 4j, also multiply it by what? Dy, also multiply it, and also 4k I have to multiply it, which is a partial of what? Of z. So the next thing that I'm going to do, I have to say this should not be equals to I, open bracket, I have f. So f, I have to take the partial derivative of g with respect to what? With respect to x, plus what? Plus g partial derivative of what? F with respect to that x. So this is for I. And for j, also the same thing. I have to say f partial derivative of g divided by the partial derivative of what? Y, plus what? Plus g, but partial derivative of what? Of f divided by the partial derivative of what? Y. And also for what? For k, I said f partial derivative of what? Of z. Sorry, I have to say g here. And therefore plus g partial of f with respect to what? Z. I hope you're understanding what I'm doing. What I did is that I just say f multiplied by the partial derivative of g with respect to the partial derivative of what? X, also plus g. After inserting f, then you have to insert g, and after inserting g here, you have to insert what? F. So this is what I did. So the next thing that I'm going to do here is that, but I need some space. So the next thing that I'm going to do here is that I have to look for f. I have f here, and also I have f here, and also I have f here. So I have to gather them together. So f should now be equals to, let's say this is equals to, I have I, the first one, which is this, so I have to say d by this, also plus the second one, which is what, which is dg by what, dy, the partial of g and the partial of what, y. So this is I, this is g. So the partial of what, g by y plus the partial of what, g by what, by z. So as you can see, and then I have to say plus, I have to keep for what, I have to keep down for the g. For g, I have g here, I have g here, and also I have what, I have g here. So I have to open the bracket, and I will say for I, which is partial of f, which is this, by what, by x, then I have to say plus, but I need some space. So I hope you are with me. So I have to say plus what, plus for j, which is partial of what, f by y, plus for k, which is partial of a by partial of z. So as you can see, this from this first part and this second part with this, with this, so I can say f it is outside. All these things that you can see, I can factor out g. If I factor out g, I will left with only del, so I have to say del g. Then I have this positive sign, so I have to say plus what, I have g outside, then I can factor out what, f at the end. I will end with del, so I have to say del f. So this question says let a be x squared zi 2y cubed z squared j and plus x y squared zk. Find del dot a dot vector a at this point. So without wasting of time, let me say the del dot what, dot the vector a is the same thing as I have I by this plus j by the partial of what, y plus k by the partial of what, of z. I have to dot it with, I have x squared, I have to dot this x squared zi minus 2y cube z squared j plus x z k. So I have to say the del dot what, dot a is the same thing as, I have to take the partial derivative of what, of each, because I have I have j, I have k. I have to differentiate this part with x, also differentiate this j part with y, and also differentiate the last part with z. So at the end, if I differentiate this with x, at the end I'll get 2xz. So therefore I'll have 2xz. And also if I differentiate the j with y, I'll get 6y squared z squared. Also, if I differentiate the k part with z will become 1. I'll get xy squared. And therefore, I am asked del dot the vector a. So this is the same thing. Don't forget, this is x, this is y, and this is z for this point. So at the end, if I insert the x, y, and z, the x, z, y, and what, and z, and the x, and what, y, at the end, I'll get 2 minus 6 plus 1 is the same thing as negative 3.